When the judge's gavel fell, I thought the war was over until a new envelope slid under my door that same night. My hands didn't shake. They steadied. I'd fought in silence once. I could do it again. And this time, I had proof. The storm had only just shifted. The first thing I heard was that stubborn, steady beep. It felt like someone else's heart was keeping time for me. The air smelled like bleach and plastic, and a thin tube tugged at my nose. I blinked once, and the ceiling above me came into focus, square white tiles, one with a crack shaped like a lightning bolt. It took a moment to remember my name, Althea Coley, and another to remember where I'd last been. The kitchen, coupons spread on the table, the sound of the church phone tree reminding me to pray for Sister Ruth's hip surgery. Now, I was here, in St. Mary's Hospital, Cleveland, late winter. The window's reflection was a smudge of gray snow and halogen streetlight. My chest felt heavy, but my mind, clear as a hymn on Sunday morning. I tested my fingers, one at a time. Makioa. They trembled but moved. Lord, I whispered inside my head. Not yet. I thought of Howard, my husband, and the way he always tapped his wedding ring on the table when he balanced our checkbook. We'd done that together for 40 years, never missed a bill, never took what wasn't ours. Ink never lies, I used to say. And I meant it. I didn't panic now. I just listened. Because in my house, we listen before we leap. Footsteps, two voices at the door, one low and tight, my son, Wallace, the other, clipped and bright like cheap perfume, Zinnia, my daughter-in-law. She's still out? Zinnia asked. For now, Wallace said. We'll need to talk to the doctor about discharge, the costs, the guardianship. We can't keep both of them on the account. I felt my stomach twist. The old man. That's what she called Howard next. That old man is going to the nursing home as soon as she dies. Every word fell sharp as broken glass. I kept my breath steady. Monitors tattled on panic. I couldn't afford that. They talked about POA, Belmont facility, liquidating assets. That wasn't caregiving. That was business. In that moment, I made a promise. Hurt later. Think now. If they brought a shovel, I'd bring a ledger. I tested a toe, a finger, weak, but working. I made my choice. I would not wake up. Not yet. When you've lived nearly 70 years, you learn a few survival rules. Never sign when you're scared. Never speak when they want you weak. I remembered what Deacon Sanders used to say. Don't argue in the aisle. Take it to the office. Well, this was going to the office. I'd gather proof before I ever spoke. I let my eyelids tremble just enough for the nurse to think I was dreaming. That nurse, Vera Hall. She moved quiet, with care. She hummed Mahalia Jackson under her breath. Her voice felt like safety. I tracked time by her hums, by the shift changes. Every hour. I memorized sounds, the squeak of the supply cart, the beep of badges. I counted breaths to keep my heart rate even. Panic made the machine sing louder. I wouldn't give Zinnia that satisfaction. I remembered the little things. Our mortgage paid off. Wallace's degree. The way Howard once said, "You're the backbone of this house." All of it, now currency for their convenience. My throat burned, but I didn't cry. Not one tear. Love had made me trust them. Now, clarity would make me strong. Outside, the hallway dimmed. Zinnia's heels clicked away, each step a drumbeat of betrayal. Wallace sighed, impatience, not sorrow. I memorized that sound, too. The room cooled. Machines whispered. Then Vera leaned close, voice soft as church velvet. "If you can hear me, squeeze once." I waited one long breath, then I squeezed. Her sharp inhale sounded like a prayer caught mid-air. She didn't let go. The monitors stayed calm. Somewhere beyond the glass, a snowplow scraped the street, carving a clean white path through the dark. Vera's whisper brushed my ear. "If you're awake, keep your eyes shut. We're going to buy you 5 minutes." Her voice was calm, the kind of calm that makes chaos nervous. I stayed still, counting the seconds between monitor beeps. She moved around the bed, pretending to check the IV, and leaned close again. Shift change at 7. Wallace always steps out for his vending machine coffee. That's our window. I gave her one squeeze. We had our language now. 1 for yes, 2 for no. She adjusted my blanket like she'd done 100 times, but slipped something soft underneath, her hooded cardigan and a surgical mask. You'll blend in, she said. She opened my chart briefly, eyes darting across the notes. You're listed as oriented to person, place, and time. That means you're sound. Don't speak unless I cue you. Her words steadied me. In my life, I'd trusted too easily, but I knew sincerity when I saw it. Vera wasn't just a nurse, she was a gatekeeper. I whispered the smallest prayer inside. Lord, make my silence louder than their lies. When Wallace returned, she waved him off sweetly. Billing needs your signature. Hunt, take your ID down. He left grumbling about insurance. I heard Zinnia's heels clicking away, probably collecting brochures about Belmont, the facility she was so proud to mention. That's when Vera pressed the bed control, lowering it slow. Now, she mouthed. I slipped on her cardigan, mask over my mouth, and swung my legs off the bed. My knees trembled, but I moved with the rhythm of someone who's practiced leaving quietly. The hallway smelled like sanitizer and late-night coffee. Carts rolled past, a perfect cover. Vera wheeled me toward the staff elevator, hidden behind a linen rack. The doors slid open, our one chance to vanish. We stepped into the cold service corridor. The concrete felt real beneath my thin hospital socks. Then, headlights flashed twice. Howard's signal. He got out of the car fast, strong arms steadying me. Hot tea, baby. No sugar, nay. Said, handing me the thermos. His voice shook once. Just once. Before he masked it with a quiet chuckle. You sure know how to make an exit. Vera touched my shoulder. If anyone asks, I never saw you leave. I nodded, memorizing her face in that flickering garage light. Then we drove into the cold Ohio night, the city behind us shrinking into a blur of snow and steel. We didn't speak until we reached a small motel off I-480, the kind with buzzing neon and rooms that smell faintly of detergent. Howard paid in cash, chose a room near the end of the hall. The heater clanked like old pipes in our first apartment. It felt fitting. I washed my hands 3 times, changed into his flannel shirt, and took my place at the small table. He spread a stack of envelopes. I didn't want to worry you, Gunis, Hamna said, but these started showing up last week. The top one read, DocuSign Power of Attorney. My name, forged in careful loops. Another paper, a guardianship motion, filed by my son. I stared at the signature. The false A pretending to be mine. You don't erase 30 years of bills I paid with one crooked pen stroke. I said. Howard's jaw tightened. We'll prove it. I took his glasses, spread the papers by date, snapped photos on his old iPhone. Every click, another nail in their plan. We do this right, I told him. No shouting, no warning, quiet moves only. We listed tasks on motel stationery. Find a lawyer, freeze accounts, copy everything. I'd call Ruth Langford. She owed me a favor from her paralegal days. Howard checked his phone. A new alert blinked across the screen. Attempted signer update approved, pending midnight batch. He looked at me, eyes hard. Midnight's 26 minutes away? I took a breath, steady and deep. Then we don't sleep, I said. If their pen moves at midnight, my proof moves at dawn. I woke before the sun. The motel room wrapped in that cold silence you only hear when snow's still falling outside. The heater groaned, coughing warmth in uneven bursts. I sat up slow, took my own pulse, checked my blood pressure with the cuff we bought at CVS. Pain talks, I whispered, but it doesn't get a vote. Howard was slumped in the chair, still wearing his shoes. I smiled. He guarded me through the night. I wrote the date and time on motel stationery, noting everything clearly. Alert, oriented, capable. If it isn't on paper, I murmured, it didn't happen. I folded the note carefully, already picturing it in a courtroom someday. I reached for Howard's old flip phone, the one with a cracked screen, and texted Vera. Need paperwork. Language only nurses fetch. It was code between us. She replied almost instantly. 10 a.m., South Service Drive. 5 minutes? Her precision gave me comfort. She was a woman who understood risk. At 10, we parked near the hospital dumpster where the cameras didn't reach. She arrived in her parka, snow dusting her shoulders, eyes steady. Progress notes, neurochecks, capacity statements, she whispered, handing me a folder so plain it looked like trash. She'd marked the lines that mattered. Alert to person, place, time, judgment intact. Follows complex commands. Keep them flat, she said. No creases. Judges like tidy proof. I squeezed her hand once. Our silent promise sealed. Back at the motel. I spread the pages on the desk under a buzzing lamp. Each word felt heavier than the next. I circled everything that proved I was of sound mind, noting the dates, each one after Wallace's filing. His incapacity claim would crumble under these lines. I wrote a 1-page summary in plain English. No lawyer could twist that. I stapled my own notes behind it, making a tidy chain of proof. Quiet order, I told myself, is power. Howard watched me work. Half pride, half ache in his eyes. By noon, I was ready to dig into the digital mess. Using his hotspot, I logged into my bank email. Notifications popped like popcorn. Profile change. New signer pending. DocuSign access. Completed. My jaw clenched. During my ICU stay, someone had logged in from Wallace's home router. The bank's log showed his device name clear as day. Another folder. Budget consolidation _V3_final. Listed Zinnia as the editor. She's bold, I muttered. I printed the audit trails, labeled each with date and reason. Outrage didn't serve me. Order did. Howard handed me coffee from the gas station next door. Black and bitter. What's next? He asked. I drew a line on paper. Dividing tasks. You handle errands, cash, burner phone. I handle evidence, contacts. He nodded. Steady as ever. We made a rule. No calls to Wallace or Zinnia, not even a text. We fight in silence, I said. Words get twisted, paper holds. I left a voicemail for Ruth Langford. Competent, evidence in hand, need immediate relief. My tone was measured, not desperate. I filed every receipt in date-marked envelopes. Proof of life, proof of clarity. The last thing I did was refresh the shared drive. A new file blinked into view. Belmont_intake packet _V2, edited minutes ago from Zinnia's laptop. Her comment chilled me. Use her maiden signature scan if needed. My breath froze midair. That was forgery. Spelled in plain text. I took screenshots, printed metadata, every digital breadcrumb captured. Then Howard's phone buzzed again. Password reset attempt, my primary email. The location ping, our house. I didn't need a map to feel the invasion. I shut the laptop, slid the documents into the manila folder, and looked out at the gray afternoon light. If they're inside my house, I said quietly, they're not just after money, they're after my name. Ruth Langford's voice came through clear as a bell when her paralegal called back. Bring every piece of proof, she said. We don't shout, we file. That sentence alone steadied my pulse. Howard drove me downtown through gray slush and salt-streaked streets. I walked into her office with a manila folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Ruth was mid-60s. Silver hair cut close. Glasses low on her nose, eyes sharp as a banker's pen. I spread everything out. Vera's notes, my motel memos, DocuSign logs, timestamps, metadata. She flipped, underlined, nodded once. Oriented ×3, she murmured. Then she started dictating. Calm, firm, surgical. A verified affidavit in plain English. No adjectives, just truth and attachments. The notary raised her stamp like a gavel. I signed with a steady hand. By noon, her paralegal had filed the temporary restraining order. Emergency freeze on all account changes. Ruth tapped her pen like a drumbeat. Judge on duty at 2:15, we're making it. We faxed and emailed cease and desist letters to Belmont and Wallace's lawyer. Every line backed with capacity proof. The paralegal marked them urgent, pending litigation, Sue. Belmont's auto reply said, admission, paused pending, legal clarification. That meant they saw the hammer coming. Ruth's style wasn't loud. It was relentless. She slid a copy of the petition toward me. "We'll serve them their own paperwork before dinner." At the credit union, I asked for the branch manager with my church lady's smile, the one that says, "I brought pie, but I can also bring receipts." Ruth flashed her bar card in the stamped filing. "We're investigating a fraudulent signer update," she said evenly. The manager's politeness wilted into caution. I laid out my proof. I was in the ICU when this approval went through. "Here's my hospital chart. Here's your timestamp." He studied the printout, then went pale. "Device alias?" Ruth prompted. He typed, frowned, printed again. Wallace's home router name glowed on the page. Ruth instructed him to reverse the pending update, annotate litigation freeze, and route all future communications to her office. He obeyed like it was scripture. Walking out, I told Howard softly, "Paper speaks louder than blood." Ruth wasn't done. She called a process server from her car. Within the hour, he'd posted the court notice on our front door. Photo timestamped. A locksmith appointment was set for morning. Proof of ownership required. I texted Joelle, my neighbor. "If a white SUV parks out front, snapshot the plate. No porch talk." 10 minutes later, Ruth filed a non-emergency police report for suspected financial exploitation. A case number, another nail in their plan. Belmont's second fax came through. Pending medical clearance. I smiled. That's corporate for, "We're not touching this mess." Back at the motel, Ruth drafted 2 final letters. No contact orders for Wallace and Zinnia. "All communication through counsel," they read. "Any visit constitutes trespass." She copied me and said, "They wanted guardianship. Now they'll get distance." Howard brewed motel coffee, and I told him, "Respect isn't begged for, it's served by certified mail." We opened a new account at a smaller bank. Paper statements only. I paid cash for a prepaid phone. 3 contacts, Ruth, Howard, and Joelle. It was near dusk when the knock came. 2 beats, pause, 2 beats, not housekeeping. A man's voice. "Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office, wellness check." My stomach sank. Wallace must have reported me missing to smoke me out. Ruth was already on speaker. Open calm, hand them the filings and ID. I smoothed my sweater, opened the door. The deputy's eyes flicked from my face to the stack of papers I held. He glanced at the judge's stamp, then at his clipboard. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "we also have a civil packet for you." Civil packet, served cold, but I'd already lit the stove. I sat on the motel bed with the envelope in my lap, its corner damp from my hand. Years in hospital administration had taught me one thing: always document before you react. I photographed each page, numbered them, and only then began to read. The accusations were as ridiculous as they were cruel. Cognitive decline, financial mismanagement, risk to self. Each dated while I was still in the ICU. Wallace's affidavit painted me as forgetful and fragile. Zinnia's claimed I'd resisted help. I could almost hear their smug tones as I read. The kicker was a proposed temporary guardian. Zinnia's so-called church friend. I marked that lie in red ink. Steady hand. Belmont readiness. I underlined it twice. They wanted to put me away while I was still breathing. I snapped photos, sent them to Ruth with a message. Capacity intact. Their dates betray them. Ruth called back before the kettle even clicked off. "We fight on paper, not in the parking lot," she said in that low, Sunday school tone of hers. "You breathe. I'll build." She mapped it out. Motion to quash, motion to strike hearsay, sanctions for bad faith, and Vera's notes front and center. "We'll turn their lies into exhibits." I added Joelle and the bank manager as witnesses. 2 people who'd seen me upright and sharp. Ruth started drafting a timeline. Every day accounted for. "No blanks," she said. "They live off blanks." I agreed to record a video statement, date, name, location, so the judge sees your eyes, Ruth said. Truth looks steady. Howard came in with his phone. "You'd better see this." He scrolled through screenshots. Zinnia had started a family group chat I wasn't in. "She's confused again." She'd written, "refusing care." My breath came short, but my tone didn't break. They're rehearsing their story. I told him. On Facebook, I found a post begging for prayers with a stock ambulance photo. Classic pity bait. Instead of replying, I wrote one calm message. I'm safe, competent, and represented by counsel. All questions go to my attorney. We sent it to Aunt Pearl and Deacon Lewis. Their words traveled faster than gossip. A lie has legs, I told Howard. But truth rides the bus. It still gets there. At 10 p.m., another blow landed. An email. Credit freeze lifted successfully. I knew better than to click. I called the number on my card. Did you request a code yesterday? The rep asked. No, ma'am. She paused. Then someone did. From an IP in Akron. Wallace's provider. My mouth tightened. I reinstated the freeze, said a verbal passphrase, and requested the full log. Then I checked Medicare. Someone had filed a care management referral. I printed every page with timestamps. Howard fetched my medication, paying cash. While I stapled the proof together, I logged each fix by hand. Paper beats panic? Always. Near midnight. Joelle texted, same car by your house. A dark sedan, plate half hidden by salt. I peered through the peephole. A man stood at the far railing, pretending to check his phone, camera glinting. Backpack up, I told Howard. Renee. We informed the front desk, changed rooms under his name, and left through the side exit. 2 wrong turns later. We reached Ruth's office garage. We're not hiding, I said. We're managing risk. He nodded. Like grown folks do? At Ruth's desk, she worked under the soft lamp, sleeves rolled up. She added the new credit logs to our motion, attached Zinnia's Facebook smear as Exhibit E. We'll request a protective order, no welfare checks, no surprise visits, no false safety placements. We organized every binder tab by color. She made me rehearse 2 lines until they sounded like granite. I am competent. I do not consent. I said them out loud until they no longer trembled. Ruth smiled. There she is, she whispered. The woman they shouldn't have underestimated. Back at the motel, dawn had not yet broken when the phone rang. 2 men here for you, the clerk whispered. They used your maiden name. My email pinged. Court hearing moved up to this morning. I pressed my skirt suit, smoothed every page in the folder, and slipped my mother's silver cross into my pocket. Howard straightened his tie beside me. Quiet and loyal as ever. If they want me erased by morning, I told him, they'll have to spell my name right in court. The courthouse smelled like old carpet and cold coffee. I arrived at 7:58 sharp with Howard and Ruth beside me. The guard at security eyed my folder like it might bite, but I kept my grip tight. Inside, Ruth whispered. We argue capacity first, then improper purpose, then the protective order. No detours. She handed me a peppermint. Her version of armor. Pen tap means pause. Chin tilt means decline bait. Across the hall, Wallace straightened his tie while Zinnia whispered to a new lawyer, a slick man with a smile too wide. I caught my reflection in the glass door. Gray curls, pressed navy coat, eyes steady. Vera texted that she was parking. Joelle waited outside. Calm as sunrise. I breathed deep, humming the note I used to start choir practice. The bailiff called the case. Judge Marisol leaned forward, kind eyes but sharp tone. The new lawyer jumped right in, waving papers about my decline. His voice oiled the air with words like safety and stability. Ruth rose slowly, set her hand flat on the table. Objection, hearsay. We moved to bifurcate. Capacity first. The judge nodded. Agreed. Proceed. I was sworn in. Voice steady. Ruth's first question. State your name, date, and where you slept last night. I answered clean. Precise. Even joked lightly. Motel heater clanks, but I slept just fine. The room chuckled. The lawyer pressed. Why a motel? I met his gaze. For safety. I didn't elaborate. Ruth's subtle pen tap reminded me. No speeches. Vera's testimony came next. She laid her nursing notes like gospel. Patient-oriented times 3, she said clearly. Fully engaged in discharge planning. Each timestamp overlapped with their supposed evidence of confusion. The judge followed every line. her pen moving briskly. When the opposing counsel claimed I'd hallucinated, Vera smiled faintly. That chart belongs to another patient, different medical record number. Ruth slid in the Belmont fax, Zinnia's signature on the tour request, stamped unauthorized. Judge looked up. So, Miss, Coley never consented? Correct, Your Honor. My answer was simple. I do not consent. The words landed solid, heavier than any file in that courtroom. Then Ruth called the bank manager on speaker. His voice echoed steady through the microphone. Attempted signer addition rejected. Security phrase mismatch. She submitted the IP logs from Wallace's provider, and the judge frowned. Medicare audit showed a care referral I'd never approved. Ruth stacked each proof like bricks. And opposing counsel tried to pivot, muttering about concern. Ruth cut in. Concern doesn't justify fraud. Then came Zinnia's texts, displayed large. She's a problem to remove. I didn't flinch. I explained my motel stay, harassment, unknown car, and my right to privacy as a competent adult. Ruth rolled out the timeline board. Stroke, recovery, filings, today, no blank spaces. That's continuity, she said softly. Their lawyer smirked. Isn't it true you're paranoid? It's true I'm careful, I said. Paranoia is fear without evidence. I've got plenty of evidence. A few quiet chuckles rippled through the gallery. He brandished a Facebook printout. Ruth objected. Unauthenticated. Sustained. He pushed harder. You hate your daughter-in-law, don't you? No, I said evenly. I just stopped funding my own erasure. Even the clerk stopped typing for a second. He accused me of being influenced. Judge cut him short. She's represented, not manipulated. Learn the difference. When the gavel fell, it was almost anticlimactic. Judge ruled clear. No incapacity. Petition denied with prejudice. A hush rolled over the room. Then she added, protective order granted, no further contact, no welfare checks, no placements. She turned to Zinnia's lawyer. And counsel, continued misuse of this court may invite sanctions. Ruth leaned forward. Please note the bank logs and Belmont fax in the minutes. The judge nodded. So ordered. Wallace's lawyer asked to reserve rights. Judge didn't blink. You may reserve humility instead. I almost smiled. Outside, the hallway air felt thinner. Zinnia hissed. This isn't over. Wallace kept his eyes down, lips pressed like he'd tasted metal. Ruth touched my arm. We walk, not gloat. As we stepped away, my phone buzzed. A property recorder alert. Someone had filed a quitclaim deed on my lake cabin during the hearing, using my misspelled maiden name. Ruth's voice dropped low. They didn't even wait an hour. I stared at the timestamp, the ink still drying on justice that morning. Then they just moved the fight from my name to my land. The elevator felt too slow for the kind of fire I was walking through. My phone still glowed with the recorder alert, the parcel ID of my lake cabin flashing like a warning light. Ruth stood beside me, calm as a metronome, while Howard held a thermos between his hands like prayer. The moment the doors opened, we moved straight to the recorder's division. I gave the clerk my name, and she typed quickly, brows rising. Filed today, she said. Electronic submission, unsigned. Ruth leaned forward, voice clipped but polite. We're not contesting ownership. We're securing chain of custody. The clerk printed a pre-index copy. My maiden name, misspelled. Notarized in a county I've never set foot in. I photographed every inch. My breath stayed low and slow. Just like choir training, don't rush the note. Hold it steady. Security led us through a side hall to the kiosk logs. On screen, the timestamp matched the time I'd been sitting in court that morning. The supervisor pulled a still frame from the annex camera. Two figures stood at the terminal. Zinnia's coat unmistakable. Her posture sharp as glass. Beside her, a tall man in a baseball cap kept his face down. Howard muttered, "That's his walk." But Ruth silenced him with one look. We let evidence talk. We signed for the footage. Chain of custody sealed with initials. The IP trace showed a route through the county Wi-Fi pool. We can pull DHCP logs with a subpoena, the technician promised. I nodded, my voice even. Please do. before someone decides the footage corrupted. My anger didn't flare, it flattened into clarity. Back at the counter, the clerk warned that automated indexing could still post the forged deed overnight. Ruth drafted a notice of adverse claim right there, handwriting sharp and deliberate. "File it now," she said. I signed an affidavit swearing no conveyance was made. The clerk, older than me by maybe 5 years, looked over her glasses and said quietly, "We'll flag the parcel personally." She pressed the seal down with the kind of care only civil servants understand. Steady, patient, final. The sound of that seal clicking was the most reassuring thing I'd heard all day. We drove straight to Cleveland PD's Financial Crimes Unit. Detective Alvarez met us in a glass room that smelled like burned coffee and toner. I laid the stack on the table. The forged deed, the kiosk still, my affidavit, the hearing order. Alvarez asked, "Who gains if you lose it?" "Zinnia and Wallace," I said. "If they thought I'd sell, they'd pocket the proceeds." Or Ruth added, "2 parallel attempts in 24 hours, guardianship and property transfer. That's coercive control." Alvarez wrote fast, already requesting the footage and DHCP logs. He listed charges: forgery, identity fraud, attempted theft in real property. I didn't smile. I just nodded. Naming the crime wasn't vengeance. It was diagnosis. By the time we reached Ruth's office, dusk had settled over downtown. Her paralegal typed while we dictated an emergency restraining order. No deed recordings, no encumbrances. Full freeze. Within an hour, the judge's e-signature came through. Ruth forwarded it to the recorder and the fiscal office. Howard called the bank to place restitution holds on any related escrow. I texted Vera a simple line, "Safe for now." She sent back a heart. Relief came quietly. A slack jaw, a sip of water, the sound of my pulse settling. Then the phone rang. Wallace. Ruth motioned to speaker. "You're blowing this up," he said. Zinnia whispered in the background. "It was just a paper test," I answered. "Testing theft is still theft." Her voice cut in. "You don't even use that cabin." "Ownership doesn't expire from disuse," I said. Ruth clicked record. Wallace huffed. "You're embarrassing us." "Then stop making crime scenes with my name," I told him. Silence stretched, call ended. I turned to Ruth. "That's the last time I take family calls without counsel." Dinner turned into strategy. Takeout cartons, Tenso yellow pads, and the smell of cold fries. Ruth laid out tasks, utility bills, parcel photos, discovery lists. Howard highlighted maps, tracing how the cabin sat apart from the main truss, the spot where my husband once taught me to bait a hook. "Tie your knots like you mean it," he'd said. Ruth smiled faintly. "Then we'll tie these filings tight." As we packed up, the receptionist wheeled in the last mail cart. A certified envelope slid across the table. No return address. Inside, a USB drive and printouts of a text thread, Zinnia and WC. "Nowacy planning clean notary and 2 deeds next week." Scrawled at the bottom, "Check insurance change on cabin." Howard pulled up the insurer's portal. There it was. Wallace listed as interested party. Ruth exhaled, eyes cold. "They're lighting fires on all sides." I looked at the drive, at my own reflection in the silver plastic. Then it's time to pull the alarm. We reached the insurer's headquarters just after 8, the sky still carrying that pale Cleveland gray. Ruth moved fast through the lobby, badge in hand, her heels steady on the marble. I followed, clutching the USB from last night, our fuse, and our extinguisher in one. The compliance officer met us at reception and guided us to special investigations. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed as Ruth unfolded the timeline. Crisp and exact, the forged deed, the interested party change, the guardianship hearing. I gave my statement calmly, explaining that no policy change had been authorized by me or anyone on my behalf. Howard laid out premium receipts and bank drafts for every quarter. When the investigator opened the USB, Zinnia's texts filled the screen. "Clean notary. 2 deeds next week." The silence afterward was the sound of their credibility collapsing. The insurer locked the policy and rejected the fraudulent request before we'd even left the floor. By mid-morning, We were seated with counsel from the title insurer, their conference room full of laminated county maps. Ruth presented the forged quitclaim copy and kiosk stills. Their lawyer blanched. Within minutes, they issued a global fraud notice on all files tied to my parcel ID. Any escrow or title disbursement would now require dual signatures, mine and Howard's. "We'll freeze pending wires," the counsel said, tapping his pen nervously. I didn't smile. I just nodded and said, "Put it in writing." The recorder's office confirmed the TRO was live on their system. Any future filing would route straight to the fraud supervisor. I exhaled slowly. That was the sound of oxygen returning to my lungs. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and floor wax when we arrived for the afternoon hearing. Ruth petitioned to convert the TRO into a permanent injunction and submitted the USB as new evidence. Detective Alvarez testified about chain of custody, the video footage, and the kiosk logs. Opposing counsel tried to wave it away as a misunderstanding. Ruth hit play on the phone recording, Wallace's own voice saying it was just a paper test. The courtroom went quiet except for the ticking of the clock. The judge leaned forward. Petition dismissed with prejudice. Injunction granted, protective order to remain in effect. He added attorney's fees to me. Restitution pending. The gavel fell once, clean as a heartbeat. Justice doesn't roar. It clicks shut like a safe. Ruth filed certified copies across every agency: recorder, insurer, HOA, marina. Access cards belonging to Zinnia and Wallace were deactivated before sunset. I sent one short message to family. All property matters are closed. Inquiries go through counsel. No commentary, no gloating. Ruth pinned a public notice on the courthouse bulletin board. Names, docket numbers, injunction language. Nothing more. Their shame could live in the open record. I didn't need to narrate it. A day later, Alvarez called. Charges were moving forward. Wallace's employer confirmed administrative leave pending investigation. Zinnia's boutique account froze from chargebacks. I authorized liens for fees. Ruth filed preservation letters for their devices. My estate memo was updated. No gifts, no loans, no exceptions. Mercy meant I wouldn't humiliate them publicly. Justice meant I wouldn't save them from themselves. At dusk, Howard and I met at the cabin. We retitled the property under a charitable remainder trust in my late husband's name, income to me for life, then to a Great Lakes scholarship fund. The new deed went into the recorder's system with the label, non-conveyable without court approval. I replaced the pier lock. Its metal cold under my fingers. Vera joined me later with tea. We sat on the dock. Quiet. "You finally tied those knots," she said. I smiled. Like I meant it. Spring crept in by morning. I'd booked a 90-day stay in Lisbon, new hills to climb, air that smelled of salt, no one knowing my history. Vera helped me pack. "You really leaving all this?" she asked. "Not leaving," I said, "just living elsewhere." I wrote Wallace a final note. "When you're ready to face truth, counsel knows how to reach me. Until then, I wish you silence and sense." At dawn, I swept the cabin floor, locked the windows, and placed the trust deed in the safe. A car pulled up, Detective Alvarez again, holding an evidence bag with a cabin key marked W.C. "Pawn shop recovery?" he said. I nodded. The lake was mirror still, clouds drifting low. I slipped a new key onto a chain around my neck, picked up my suitcase, and closed the door behind me. They wanted me contained instead. I folded the box flat and carried it with me. As the plane lifted from Cleveland's skyline, I glanced at my phone. One unread message, no name, just 4 words. "You left something behind." My pulse steadied, then spiked. Was it warning or invitation? Stay tuned, because peace, in my story, never lands quietly.